Is that one working?
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
At our last meeting, we've lost 43 police officers and 7 firefighters in the line of duty, including Verde Valley Fire District firefighter Tyrone Bell.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. Well, we have some special presentations to do this evening, and we're going to jockey our agenda around just a little bit. Normally, we would go into executive session, but because of some presentations and acknowledgments and badges, we're going to move it around. I'd like to turn it over to Chief Trotwine for badge pinning and introduction ceremony. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. Wow, this is a hot mic. And I am a loud talker. Ask staff. So we'll start with our badge pinning and welcome everyone. I'm going to stand up front, I think. No, I'm not going to sing. Yeah, I heard that, Chief. So, first of all, welcome to all the families. It is incredibly appropriate that you're all here to support your firefighters. And I shared with them kind of some of my thoughts on how you progress through your career in the fire service. Coming up on 30 years, and the whole time you hit what we call benchmarks. So there's notable periods in a career where you pause for a minute and reflect. Of course, they got through our testing process, which is one benchmark. I told them they could take 5 seconds off and reflect on that. And then they got through their second benchmark, which was the 3-week orientation that we did, train them. And I told them they could take 30 seconds and reflect on that. So really, they hit the floor, they got their task book, so they're in that next benchmark. This is a benchmark where we give them a badge. So we're going to do that, and for Kelly and Dylan here, and then you guys get to select your family members who'd like to come up. I know we're in our polos. I've been very flexible with the material supply chain issues that we've had, like every industry. So that's why they're not in a shirt like this. But so I want to say a couple words about what the badge symbolizes. Then we'll have you guys come up, your family member, pin you, and we'll swear you in oath. So these badges, and you can see, stars of firefighter, they're usually a different color than what up the battalion or assistant chief. But as an acronym, I like just to briefly speak what this badge means to you guys as firefighters. And we like t-shirts and polos because we're running around the trails picking people up all the time. So shirt you can tell would be red by the time I was done. So the acronym is ARS. So what's A stand for? So when you get this badge pinned on you as a firefighter, you're sworn into the job, you get authority. You actually get authority over time. Authority is a weird thing, because you're wearing a uniform, have a badge, and you're a sworn firefighter. There's certain authority where people have to do what you say, follow what you're asking. For example, you're on a traffic collision, and the captain says, "Hey, Dylan, go out and direct traffic. I'm worried this car's going to hit us." You go out and tell people to stop and move. They follow you, right? They see you in your badge or in your polo. That authority really is given to you over. That's the funny thing about authority as you go in the fire service. The level of authority you have changes as you go along too. The difference between a rookie firefighter and the fire chief, there's different levels of authority, right? If you're about 1% responsible, I'm 100%. Let's talk about the second one, which is R, which is responsibility. Again, responsibility like authority is an interesting thing. You did it overnight. There's assumptions. You have job assignment. those responsibilities you have to carry out and get through your task books. And some of them are pretty significant responsibilities. And responsibilities is kind of like when you're given responsibility and you do well with it, pay off, right? No! You get more responsibility, right? Like Chief Paul is a good example with COVID when it comes to the wildland community in the country, really. And so hard is he became a subject matter expert in ecology. Yeah, he did like 100,000 hour class on things with John Hopkins. I mean, he went well beyond the call of duty, but he had responsibilities as the operations chief, but he had even greater responsibility because of the change in what we needed to accomplish. So, authority overnight, and that authority kind of escalates as you move along your career. You also get responsibility overnight, and that responsibility escalates. So the last one, that little acronym, ARS, sacrifice. Tricky one, right? So, don't ever forget, you're in the fire service. That's the general umbrella, right? We're a fire district. We're not a fire department, but a fire district. But we have a commitment to the fire service. So the word service, what that means in your response in this badge, authority, responsibility, service, corrections, authority, responsibility, sacrifice. You're going to make sacrifices. First, it might be pretty simple, like, yeah, I'd love to be at your birthday party, Mom, but I got a tour this weekend, so I'm going to be working. But I'll come by Monday and bring you some flowers and tell you I love you, right? Give me a little modification. Is that a sacrifice? Well, yeah, when the rest of the family's there, you're having a great time, you're getting texts at work, we're having a great time, too bad you couldn't be here. and pictures of, nice bottle of whiskey that they're handling, and we don't drink them, so. So, sacrifice is kind of interesting as you move along again. And they have to make more sacrifices as you go. So, like authority and responsibility, but to me it's a more challenging one in your career. And not only that, you might be asked to make one of the most significant sacrifices you ever make on day one. Like authority, that kind of grows, responsibility grows. But sacrifice, you might run a response where you have to do some things that might be day one, It doesn't have to be 30 years down the street. So you always got to be ready to sacrifice, but the other reason I bring up sacrifice when it comes to the authority and the responsibility is families have to sacrifice too. So you guys are going to make sacrifices, not just in schedule, mental health, with physical health. You're going to see challenges, and you're going to try to overcome challenges that you can. Do as a team, but you got to lean on your family too. Right? So Dylan's going to one day say, "Hey, I'm going to paramedic school." You guys are going, "Ooh, don't do that. That's hard." Then he's like, "No, I really want to do it." And you're going to say, "Okay, well, what do we need to do to help you?" That process is important. So sacrifice isn't just for the firefighter throughout their career. That circles back to when we talk about service, right? And you're entering a service here, making sacrifices, and families that step out around their firefighters. We have military families, we have police families, but highest stress levels they are finding are in firefighters. You're going to go 20, 25, 30 years where you pull that sacrifice and you're in those positions. You can't shake it. Right? Fill up, figure out how to manage that. And again, it's back to the family. You guys are making sacrifices just like your firefighters. So it's exciting to me to know that you're going to serve, but family's serving right along, right? So don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget how important that is. And when times are tough and you're mandatory or it's holidays and your firefighter's gone, don't let that put you down. They're serving, they're meeting needs, they're meeting your needs. You're going to touch somebody that day. Why don't we, go ahead. We'll do one at a time.
Take
Go
it.
ahead.
Kelly.
Really hard for you. And, all right? Do it every
No pressure. It's easy without the little bashful.
Gotta draw a little blood.
Yeah. Oh, sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
All right, well, let's give him a hand. Take your photo. You can leave your dad at home. So, now I want you to face down, but go ahead and raise your right hand. I state your name. I solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution. I will support the Constitution. Of the United States. Of the United States. Constitution and laws. And the Constitution and laws. State of Arizona. Of the state of Arizona. That I will bear true faith. That I will bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. And allegiance to the same. Defend them against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic. That I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of firefighter of the Sedona Fire District. According to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Oh. Oh.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, man. If y'all would like to, you can go out and take pictures of our friends. Want to get some better pictures of that when you're running back and forth in front of your photos? Yeah. Oh. What's the, I'll walk over and find out.
You want to still, Joshua's not here?
Yeah, he's checking ETA and then
Okay.
we'll let them exit out.
Okay. Well, hello.
I thought we were starting at 4:30.
So do we, but it was here because we have executive session. Starting at 4. But
You always have to check the agenda. That was
we've got some things that we had to get out of the way first. So you're Kevin the same.
You missed ceremonial. Too bad. So it was who got their badge pinned was Kelly Lieberman, and then it was Jacob.
No, I
Okay, no worries.
know them because I went to class with them. That's why I wanted
That
to
was-
be here with them.
Oh,
Heidi, that
okay.
was,
Have a good night.
hey,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Enjoy.
Congratulations.
Hi, nice to see you. Welcome. Yes.
That was,
Start
yep.
with John, 5 here, and then we'll do Josh, 20.
Yes.
So they're upcoming.
Okay, that was Dylan and Kelly.
Yes. Dylan Reister, Kelly Lieberman.
Kelly was a little guy.
Yeah,
We
the
are
other two.
recording and live.
Kelly's the big fella. Yeah.
Kelly's, yeah. On the record.
Okay, we're we'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, presentation of awards and staff recognition in just a moment as they're pulling into the firehouse right now. So why don't we take a 5-minute break and be back here at 4:22. Okay. Family of our next recognition for staff is still about 20 minutes out. So we're going to go ahead and go into executive session, and then we will reconvene in open session and then continue on with the staff recognition. So with that said, vote to go into executive session for legal advice pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 and possible instruction pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A4 in regards to case number CV 18-08143, PHX DLR Acosta versus Sedona Fire District. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are now in executive session.
Okay, to leave these on or turn them off?
You know what, we... Good to go. Okay, we are back in open session. So as a result of executive session, I'd like a motion to be made, or I'll make the motion to direct the chief, working with legal counsel, as discussed in executive session, to move forward with the process. Do I have a second?
A second.
As directed, yes. Okay. Have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right. Getting back on track with our open meeting agenda. Right now, we are into our presentation of awards and staff recognition. Chief Troutwine.
Mayor and board and staff and committee to crew and family. So we have two special recognitions for Tom. I'll explain why they're special. So what I think I'll do is I want to read comments about these two SFD individuals. I'll come around with their pen and we can have a... So the first one, this is for 5 years of service, and it's our own division chief, our Fire Marshal John Davis. And I'm saying it's special because John done all his paperwork and he's ready to retire here in November. So, John, let's see, you did what, 36 years in the fire service?
36 years, 3 of that was volunteer time.
John had the vast majority of his career up in Lebanon, Oregon. We'll read that, but he came here with a commitment to be the fire marshal for 5 years. Fulfilled that commitment. So we're going to give him this 5-year pen to remember that, but we appreciate John and the work he's done. He hired as our deputy fire marshal back in 2016. Started fire marshal in 2017. Classified as division chief risk reduction, which is currently. We had multiple letters of thanks from patients and other members of the community for volunteer work. I might add multiple thanks from the community through his fire marshal responsibility. John's position is a lot of internal responsibility, but there's a lot of external responsibility. Directly with the community, really accomplish what we need to keep it safe. John spent from 1988 to 2006, he was a fire engineer medic up in Lebanon Fire District in Lebanon, Oregon. 2006 to 2016, fire prevention specialist up in also Lebanon Fire District. He attended Oregon State University, legal science from 1986, his AS in general studies, at community college. Also, he's attended quite a bit the National Fire Academy. First program manager, emergency resource deployment planning, fire department ops, and target hazard. John has a plethora of accreditation that come with his position, which will serve him well if he chooses to do construction in his house up in Oregon when he goes. So I'm not going to read all of them. So tonight, again, we'd like to congratulate John on his 5 years of service here and for his service to the Sedona Fire District. So let's all right, and we'll get a photo in a moment. First, we're going to go to our second service award here. And this is for 25 years of service. Our own Josh Maxwell, and I know his family's here, and his dad, we just 30 years, right? Dropped out of battalion chief here in the district, so we're looking at a second generation family here. I don't know, is there any up and comers? Don't point to him, how about you girls? We need strong women too on the job. So we don't know if we're going to hit a third generation yet, but that's probably your leadership and your accomplishments here in the district attracted Josh to the job. So at 25 years of service and you're still here hanging out, appreciate that. So Josh started here as a cadet back in 1996. Operations EMT volunteer in 97. 01 he promoted to firepower EM2. In 01 he also became a certified paramedic. Promoted to engineer medic in 2008. And also right now he's a temporary captain medic. Served well throughout the ranks. And, special recognition, 2014 unit citation, and multiple letters of thanks for emotional assessment centers, great EMS response and patients, members of the community. The members of the community in this department talk highly of Josh. Letters were the real thing. They weren't careful with them. I think genuine thanks for your service accomplished here. Of course, your dad's here. This significant. So Josh too serves on our mental health team. So we have a mental health team that meets quarterly, and the two hot topics of the fire service are cancer. So knowing Josh and his family, me very little, being here a little time, but I do know you have a genuine commitment to the fire district, and that's special. Not everyone. So let's all give Josh a hand for 25 years. Get John here first, and then Josh. Paper. Congratulations. We'll get a picture of this first, and then we'll get some family there too.
All right.
Family pictures? Come on, guys. That's what it is. Fun, inspiring firefighters. Get third and fourth generation, maybe.
Two and a half and one. Excuse me if I won. That's digital, right? No, three. All right.
Thank you.
Prepare a speech.
I was going to say, we don't normally have speeches, but these are kind of two special awards, so John or Josh, if you want to say something, feel free.
Did y'all actually figure out? Yeah, well, good.
You sure we're one already?
You getting them working results there? I was saying, thank you for the opportunity. 5 years means a lot of stuff that I've done. On the capacity for the new guy.
Yes, thank you, family for serving all those years.
Thank you. If I might add just one comment here, we looked at the young ladies if they wanted to be firefighters, but let's not forget that Karen Maxwell over here served at the highest level and was a member of this very board. So thank you for your service also.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for your service.
Congratulations.
Great job, Finish up over here. I don't want to leave you.
I was gonna say.
I'm not going to leave you.
Right.
I bet you he's super strong. Okay, with that said, we will get into our regular business at hand. So far, at this point, do we have any requests from the public to speak?
We do not.
We do not, okay. So there will be no response. Consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we have the September 21st, 2021 regular meeting minutes and the September 21st, 2021 executive session minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor to approve?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. Next on the agenda is our financial report and update from our finance director, Gabe Boldra.
All right, good afternoon, or I guess good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have the September financial report in your packet. So with that, great.
It's a little slow, sorry.
Tax levy revenue for the month of September, we'll see, was at $228,236. We were over our projected budget by $117,000. So good thing there for some of our newer board members. When we develop our monthly budgets, we take our total projected tax collection revenue for the year, and we allocate that as a percentage of what we've seen as a percentage of collection historically over the last 3 years. And so as we go from month to month, some months we're right on, and other months we may get come ahead, come behind, but ultimately when we get to year end, we find ourselves pretty much right in line with what we budgeted. We have very low delinquency here in Sedona. The first year we even saw over 1% delinquency was last year, the previous year actually, with COVID. So moving on, non-labor revenue was at $298,000. We were over budget by $25,000. Yeah, sorry, still going. Wildland revenue is really what attributed to that variance there. Ambulance revenue, I'm happy to report, is right in line with budget. So things are looking good on that side. Moving on to our expenses for September, you'll see personnel was under budget by $21,000. However, when we get to buildings and land, you'll see we were over budget by $23,000. And that was really due to two things. One, we had a water heater and a water softener replacement, as well as evaporative cooler at Station 3 replacement. So that's why you kind of see that variance for the month and then for the year to date. Vehicles and equipment was slightly over budget, $18,000. And then communications and IT was pretty much right in line with budget, small variance there, and managerial under budget by $12,000. Moving on to year to date, you'll see total revenue, we're at $1,741,000. On that is actually puts us over budget on revenue by $570,000 through the month of September. So really happy to see that, as what's driving that is one, our Wildland, that is over budget by $165,000. And so again, we do anticipate ending the year being over budget, unlike property tax collection. And then our ambulance, because of the transition last year, we had a little bit of a lag on some of our collections on ambulance revenue last year from the billing transition, but that's all been made up. We're about $330,000 ahead on ambulance collections through the month of September. So happy to report good things there.
Are we finding that our ambulance collection process now is more efficient, or as efficient, or more to our liking, or how are we viewing that as?
Well, I think I'll speak to it a little bit from a finance standpoint, and maybe let Chief or Heidi kind of add into some other aspects of it. But I think what we're seeing from a finance standpoint is a more robust, a better depth of process coming to us. I mean, not that we had a shortfall here,
Right.
but in our previous department's defense, they were two people. Now we have an entire billing department, so to speak, that handles our billing with much more resources to be able to look after and find information for people that we don't have their insurance information. And so as we continue down this road, I believe we'll have better data and to be able to answer that question even better down the road.
Sure, and then I'll comment too. Prior to our billing company, really needed to look at like a 5-year picture of what we would average over a month, because we had some pretty, a couple of things that they said where we might get a few months behind, and we might get a little ahead and behind. What we are starting to see finally with the billing company is, so once we get the consistency, then Chief Mazulis and I have talked, that's where we can start to do some more detailed queries and information at payer mix and how we want to approach this, and are we getting the right signatures, and are we getting turnaround. So we just need to give it a little more time to get a little more system. Then at our projections and how we budget, I think we'll probably get a little more accurate number. I think so far it's going pretty good. I don't know if Chief Mazulis comment on it.
I'm really pleased with the process. Chris and I went through training with the company last week on the dashboard that they have, and the metrics that we can analyze without having to call them or send an email, it's huge. I could tell you minute by minute how much we're gaining in revenue from each payer, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurers. There's a tab we worked on, for example, that on top of our own internal quality assurance from the billing side, they can better fine-tune what our providers are missing on billing stuff in real time, so they can action something in real time to fix those things. And we implemented some suggestions from them on how we scan documents from the hospital. It's a different process than what we did before, and it's eliminated paper so that we don't have paper running around the district now. And so it's going really well.
Good. Okay. Super. Thank you.
Thank you. Forgot where I was at, but it's okay. Never remember, expenses. Moving on, expenses. So you'll see we are at $4.8 million in total expenses through the month of September, which puts us about $93,000 over budget. Now, to kind of explain that budgetary variance, you'll see personnel is really what's driving that. We're $4,062,000, which is $81,000 over budget. That's all due to those Wildland deployments. So, we only projected so much revenue. We also only projected so much expense for Wildland. Now that we're having the additional revenue, we've got some of that expense that comes with that. However, that revenue well covers that expense and then some. And then the only other area, which I mentioned in the September report, was buildings and land. That variance is being driven by that purchase this past month for the water heater, softener, and evaporator cooler system. Percentage of expenses, you'll see we've expended 29% with 71% remaining. You know what, though? It's quicker than when I do it.
That's true.
When we're doing it the other way. As far as percentage of expenses, personnel is our highest, 83%, followed by operations at 7%, communications at 6%, and managerial at 4%. I will point out you do see down there that statewide average of 81%. Again, remember earlier in the year, we have heavier Wildland deployments, which increases our personnel costs as a percentage of expense. As we continue through the year and we have other expenses in the budget, we usually see ourselves come back in line with that average. And finally, year-over-year cash position, you'll see we ended the month with $9,064,000 compared to $7 million last year this same time. Other assets increased from 20.7 to 21.8 million, and our total liabilities decreased from 29.1 to 28.9. I will, before I complete my report, let the board know we are in audit prep phase now. The audit field work is scheduled for the week of November 15th, and that will be combined remote and on-site work. The plan is the auditors will be on site on the 17th for their actual on-site field work, but we'll be working with them that whole week, as well as district staff working with them on some of the walkthroughs and different things virtually.
Okay.
So with that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions the board may have.
Any questions for Mr. Boldrew? No, I think that's it. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the finance report for September 2021 as presented. Do I have a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Finance report for September 2021 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is our Chief's report. Chief Troutwine.
Here, board, good evening. So, evaluate our first two slides here on the chief report in terms of our year-to-date totals. 2021, we're at 3,672 responses, and at this time it was 3,252. So you can see, again, we're up slightly from last year, and the breakdown is largely rescue and EMS. That increase. September, we had a slight increase. Evaluate our responses by September, not anything unusual. Station 3, 1, and more than 6 and 5, again. In terms of. So, I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Administration Services, Heidi Robinson, for administration.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm getting my microphone. I never. So to update you on our news and events, we've been talking for a long time about that planning of our HVAC system update in Station 1. If you've wandered through, if you've come by for a Chief's meeting, you may have seen some very persistent activity. So we do look a little bit more like a submarine than we do anything else right now with ceiling tiles missing, but progress is being made. The crew is great that's here helping us, so we look forward to that being complete. Thank you for approving funding for that project. We are looking at some grant opportunities. So Securus, our workers' comp pool, had put out a notice that one of the other fire districts is looking at getting some grant funding to do cancer screening for the district, and they were looking at doing that as a district-wide piece. They've asked for input, whether we'd like to participate in that, in sharing some research and work on it, and then also then hopefully being a shared recipient of the grant. So we have put Sedona Fire into that mix, so we would like to. It's something that we put into our strategic plan. It's something that we've been talking about that in health and wellness, of increasing our cancer screening testing for things in particular that affect firefighters. So we've been looking at that individually for some time, and so if we can offset the cost of that by getting some grant funding, we're all about it. So we'll give you updates as we know. It should be a long process, but we will update you. Some upcoming events, we've been invited to the Sedona Trunk or Treat event, so they have canceled trick-or-treating. The city has canceled the trick-or-treating event in Uptown. This year, they are not proceeding with that. They're doing an alternate event at the Posse grounds. They've invited, through the fire marshal, they've invited us to participate, and we're looking to see if we can spare the staff and a vehicle to participate in that event. So executive leadership will continue to discuss that and see if we can. We always do enjoy our haunted ambulance. Planning for the annual award celebration continues. Not to say it's on a back burner, but it's just something we got on our radar. We want to continue to do that, and also our collaboration with Sedona Fire, or the Sedona Fire Sedona PD picnic. We're gearing up and kind of getting it on the radar, our Toys for Tots fundraising. So we've typically done a table or a booth for collecting and invited folks to come to the stations. We're still a little hesitant about inviting folks to come to the stations. We will have the boxes available for people to drop off toys. If you'll recall, our community award was for our Toys for Tots coordinators last year, and so we're continuing that relationship. We're also continuing what we did as an alternate event last year, which was the bike ride that firefighter Feeney participated in. He is a competitive bike racer, and so he has stationed up an event where he rides a stationary bike continuously for 12 hours, and he's issued an all-call challenge for folks to ride with him and match it. So look for some more information about that as we pull that together. It is a fundraising opportunity. You can sponsor, you can, pledge by mile. We'll do it up as well as we can, but to raise funds for this event and to have a little athletic competition with it would be a good idea. Staffing updates, we have an update on our fire marshal recruitment. That process is in its final phase with a, what are we calling it, a contingent offer being made, and we're going through the background process, and we will update you when that is complete. Moving forward with the items that we can while we wait, and otherwise we just on to our fire marshal in the process. Also to report, as you may notice, someone sitting in the chair. We did have a resignation from our executive assistant to leadership. Carrie Tarver has moved on to some other things, and so we regretfully said goodbye and hope she's listening to our recording. Sadly, we messed it up in her absence. But Michelle Miller is going to be filling in the next few months as we go through that recruitment process. So you're very familiar with Michelle, and thank you for thank you for filling in. In preparing the packets and the agendas will be Stephanie Knight, who you know from reception. So they're kind of splitting up those responsibilities. Have needs as a liaison to the board, please feel free to contact me. Go directly to the so we're not anticipating much change in process, no interruption, though we're robustly looking for a new candidate. I think that's all the recruitment that I have. It's all that I've noted. We will go through our mental health moment. It's really just noting the Awareness Month, which we are in October, and it is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we have, I've hidden it, my little pink ribbon. The guys are out in their T-shirts with the pink logos. Part of their tour, and we always do that. We like to answer questions. Really, our mission is awareness. We're not fundraising through this process. We're just trying to raise awareness and make sure people understand, get cancer screenings early. It's really your best bet. This month is also shared with the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so maybe that's our mental health moment component to it. With we saying it, the stresses are highest. We still persist through a COVID pandemic world, and not doing your regular activities, not having your regular outlets, not having your regular communication, it can put stressors on the family. And our first responders are generally the ones that are going to see this first. It's not always medical, it's not always family that's going to notice. So we're encountering this as a profession. We're probably encountering it with friends more than we realize, and so just making that awareness is out there. There are resources. We are one. And so making sure that that's out there for you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them at this time.
Questions for Heidi?
I have more.
Jerry? Oh, yes.
The cancer screening.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a set location for that, or do the people go to their firefighters go to their own?
Oh, you're talking about the grant funding and what we're looking for. So
Right.
what they're proposing is that we are hitting it medically. So through our annual physicals, we already do a certain amount of screening. We've been working with our staff physician to look at some other key indicators. So really doing some research and finding what are the ailments, cancer being a strong one, and different types of cancer, and how can they be properly screened and then have a plan. So our physician's been working with Jeff Wassel, who's been working with him as our staff coordinator for that, and come up with some already that we've added in this year due to some more of our surplus funding. We put that in there to fund it. This grant opportunity is a bigger research project to really fully develop that program and make it available to every fire district instead of just the ones that can happen to afford it by allocating funds as we did. So the screening would be done through the annual physicals. It would be provided for and paid for by the district of choice, and then the grant funding would help offset the cost of that. Cancer screenings are usually blood tests, so they're going to be kind of lipid tests, things of that nature, or they're going to be MRIs and big screenings. They're going to be things that are expensive. And so we have 86 personnel that are falling into that screening regimen, and so it is expensive. So having that funding to offset it, it would be very.
Thank you.
We'll go to operations assistant.
Actually stole Gabe's mic, so. I'm talking one more time.
Good evening, members of the board. So we'll start with our COVID update. I'll just hit the highlights to give likely more information. The infection rate right now in Arizona is at 0.96. That one means that one person's getting one person. So hey, just hover right there. We can just do a little bit better. Significant improvement. That's too, by the way, so. Coconino County infection rate is 0.91. Yavapai County is 0.89. So you're a little bit better than the state, and enough that is slowly bringing our trend down, but just slowly. So hopefully we can improve it as we go through the winter. And really, when you consider that the conditions in winter tend to be more conducive towards additional cases being spread because people come indoors. Well, the same reason that the flu spread, drier air does a better job of viruses traveling further, things like that. So if we can just maintain our numbers where they're at through the winter, that's going to be a good thing, especially as we continue to slowly increase our vaccination rate. A couple of the issues that we talked about last month. One was the OSHA, their new emergency temporary standard, the rules for employers and the mandates for vaccines. That temporary standard has been sent to the White House, and it should be released for saying sometime at the end of this week. We'll be able to see exactly what that looks like. Right now, it's expected to require a workforce to be fully vaccinated or require workers who remain unvaccinated to produce a negative test result on at least a weekly basis before it sounds like right now. But again, now no one knows. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid, so the other policy governing body, if you will, that could be a constraint for us, is expected to issue their emergency regulations, which is their way of issuing a rule. An interim final rule with a comment period in what they're saying. So sometime in the next 10 days, hopefully we'll see what that looks like. And that, the enforcement teeth on that is that since we have Medicare and Medicaid on ambulance transports, National Fire Administration said that we would, in their letters they sent out, said that it would apply to us. So we will see when the final rules come out exactly what they say. SFD is working to streamline testing options for symptomatic or exposed individuals through a process that we were provided Coconino County Coconino County Health Department. We filled out the paperwork. The Chief Mazulis the point of contact for that. Hopefully we'll be hearing back, but it looks like it'll be a mechanism that will allow us to provide for testing. So if someone comes in and they're symptomatic, provide them with a test, we could administer a test, until they some days to get back. So it provides them with another way to get a result to know if their cold or flu-like symptoms are in fact COVID. I think it's been interesting, we talk about this as we live in this environment for as long as we have, that one of the things with cold-like symptoms is, I'm guilty of saying it myself, but I think I just have a cold. Or if everybody remember that colds are coronaviruses. A nastier version of the cold. So if you have symptoms that are your cold, you may have a cold, one of those coronaviruses, or you may have the newest version of the coronavirus. That's something to keep in mind. Questions on the COVID-19 before we go?
No, Chief, I have one, and Chief Troutwine, based on Chief Coyle's presentation on mandating vaccine, are we already looking to have something prepared, or is it in the works now of what's going to happen when one of our employees says no, or, I don't want the shot?
So, where we've grounded is, first, we're monitoring those environments very carefully, and so we're following those timelines. We're waiting for terms to go from draft to actually approved. We're going to look at that parameter, make sure that we're following the legal parameter. Secondary to that, we've made a pretty significant effort to continue to staff, especially the unvaccinated staff. And we have to move forward. There's no surprises. I think that flow of information is going very well. As you know, and I've spoken here before, our primary mission, our number one responsibility. So also our continuity of operations. And strict policy with strict protocols, we accomplish those two things flawlessly. And other metrics and data out there for other districts and municipality fire departments, they weren't flawless in that area. So we're going to keep to that. And then what we let staff know, if we get a legal mandate, we're going to follow it. Another very important thing to staff and to this district, we follow laws. We want to be an example on that. So there shouldn't be any surprises. Obviously, if we get downstream and there is non-compliance, then we'll follow the parameters of the law and we'll take steps as we would for any issue.
Thank you.
I think it is important to note that include this in every communication, is that employees needing to an accommodation for religious or medical reasons will be provided the necessary information to submit that request for accommodation. Part of that alignment. There are significant events for this month. It was the bread and butter for the most part. I'll let John talk about the fires. I would say that ATV crashes, UTV crashes is still becoming a more popular part of the buffet. The crews go and are served on a monthly basis. I don't really anticipate that changing. You look at the numbers, it doesn't look like there's any major spikes recently. I feel like, and this is subjective, it's a component of the fact that there's just more of them on the road. They're narrow vehicles, just like Jeeps or Suzuki Samurais. And people that aren't used to driving those narrow vehicles and they're in a low friction area, a lot of them have a lot of horsepower. And my gender and English version of myself is there. We are, with Brian Espiau's help, Chief Mazulis and I agreed to add what we call a +1 code in Firehouse beginning January 1st. It's always better if we break the new codes on a calendar year, but this +1 code will be a code that for all motor vehicle accidents with injuries, without injuries, or motor vehicle versus pedestrian, all three of those different categories, there'll be a code that says UTV. So just like we do with other things, like backcountry calls, things like that, where we want to highlight exactly how many of those we had. So our reporting system will allow us to still align with all the INFRS reporting requirements, but also provide us with additional data specific to what those UTV acts.
a point just came up, and that is, are we finding that these rollovers and traffic accidents are with a single person, 2 people, or 4 people? In other words, if you get a 4-passenger ATV, it's probably a family, more than likely, but it could be all friends. More less likely to be hot dogging out there versus a 1 or 2 person. Do we see that trend out there? It's just across the board, everybody.
I think we see a lot of 4-person ones that aren't necessarily family
Yeah,
that wreck.
but they all do. It doesn't matter. They all go.
And they just need I don't know the difference in, should be speculating here, the cost to rent one.
Yeah.
So it's for your buddies, you go to rent 2, it costs $1,000, and you rent 1 4-seater, it costs $700. I have no idea if that's any of the drivers or what, but I believe there's more 4-seaters rented, because there just appears to be a lot more of them in the lots out there. So it may just be that there's more of those available to rent. It's pretty interesting when you look in the morning at those lots, and then you drive back by them at midday.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that you can rent it out.
Yeah, I've ran on a few of them in the recent months, and there is no rhyme or reason.
Just across the board.
One was a family that was hot dogging.
Yeah.
The other was a couple that was hot, all of the above. There's no trend that I've seen.
Okay.
No question, the city is, this coming next city
Next
council
Tuesday.
meeting on Tuesday, the UTV, that'll be the topic of discussion for the city. And I know, working with the chamber and some of the other efforts that they're making and working with all the ATV companies, that they're trying to get a more responsible approach to the renting, where people are coached on the proper way of driving these vehicles, where hot dogging is discouraged. Is there any evidence that this is actually working, that the people renting know more about what they're getting themselves into?
Well, Al, it's a great question. Unfortunately, our sample is highly skewed. We don't tend to talk to the ones that received that coaching and applied it, and just tend to engage with the one that didn't for whatever reason. And these are my very limited experiences. Normally not very forthcoming as to what occurred, even when you point out the place where they did the donuts and then they flipped over. So I don't know. I also don't know if there's more of them being rented. So people could be becoming more responsible. That effort could be working, but we could still be seeing roughly the same numbers of calls, just because there's a larger sample size. There's more of them on the road. I don't know exactly how that's affecting, if at all, with the accidents.
So as it stands right now, we're not actually publishing statistics that the public could read on the number of incidents that take place in a given month for UTVs, because we don't categorize that.
That's correct. We have motor vehicle accidents as a category, which it wasn't like we made up the categories. These are the categories for the national reporting system. So up until the time that we started seeing this become a larger represented subset within that sample group, we didn't have a reason to do this. In response to what we've seen, we're adding this +1 code, but to keep our databases straight. So we want to query motor vehicles for the last year, because we look at more of the aggregate numbers for 2020, and then realize that, that doesn't include this subset. So we talked about, we chose to break it on the January 1, on the end of the calendar year. Next year, we'll be able to easily say this is the number of UTV accidents.
Thank you.
Just a question, are we, I was aware of the meeting with the city next week. Do we have any role in that conversation? Are we participating? Are we present?
I'm going to defer to Chief Trotline, because that would be in to me. The way I view this is it's another one of the types of calls that we respond to. And as far as I know, everybody's been compliant with the law and how they register and how they, that they're licensed operators and everything. My rule kind of stopped there, so I'm not Chief.
Yeah, we don't have a specific invitation. I think what we try to do with council is stay aware of some of those issues. But I don't know that we're necessarily someone at the table to, where they're headed with it, but as Chief Quoll says, we're available as subject matter experts if they so choose to us. But I think now we're seeing as a problem, that's why we've broken out that subset, and we're trying to collect adequate data to, better solutions.
In observing the citizen complaints that are coming out of the whole UTV phenomena, they sometimes look to the fire district for data, whether, how often does it happen, how many people get hurt, are there any fatalities? In other words, it's sort of like, if this is really a dangerous thing, wouldn't it eventually take care of itself? Why would people rent dangerous vehicles, and it looks like citizen beware. If you can't make you be safe if you don't want to be safe.
Right, so, we have to play our role and be mission-centric. We account for our deployment and response, and we get that ALS care, and we use helicopters appropriately that we need it. And when it comes to some of the questions and where the community and the council wants to go, we definitely are available to participate in experts. I know we have council meeting coming up again, talking about the wildland coordination and threat, and I'm going to participate in that. So, our part of it, again, we try to stay focused on our mission, how we mitigate those issues in terms of response. And yeah, we're gonna walk it down and get more accurate data at least. And like Ed or Jason, when I used to respond, and I kind of have an idea how many. But we can look, day to day. We know we're responding. And it's definitely, I think, just the sheer number of those type of vehicles on the road. As Chief Quoll stated, I think that might be an uptick. For example, you go in Los Angeles County on a rainy day, how many traffic collisions do you think happen during those few hours? Hundreds. Go in a remote area where there's less cars and it rains, how many traffic collisions? Northern Arizona, or maybe a couple. So same thing going up the canyon. If there's ice, we're going to have slide-offs. Again, I think the sheer number, that's one of the things that more of those vehicles on the road, more down. Statistic we're going to... I'll move on to the Wildland seasonal. So as of 10/13/21, national preparedness level is down to 2. 1 is the lowest level, so that basically means that everybody has all their stuff in the barn ready to respond. Not a lot of stuff committed out. 5 is Armageddon. So going back down to 2 is a good thing. Right now there's about 5,000 to 6,000 individuals deployed on wildland fires across the western United States. The vast majority of them, about 85%, are in Region 5 or in California. Split almost equally between North Ops and South Ops. So that's pretty normal for this time of year, right? We get our fire season up north, and they've already had some season moderating, if not season-ending events, and then it shifts down through Northern California. We had a great rain-bringing event the last, anyway, it had rain over the last weekend. And so now it's looking just more like Southern California. The normal triggers is kind of what we're looking for there. Start getting those Santa Anas, things like that occurred. There has been some requests for resources that we've been unable to fill. We have all of our personnel. I'm sure as we talk about this, but we have all of our operational personnel on the floor now. First time in 2.5, 3 years that we've been fully staffed. We don't count as minimum staffing yet. So I'm excited about next fire season though. Everybody healthy and all the positions filled, I think we'll be able to do a much better job next fire season with doing some of those requests. Last thing about fire season I want to talk about is that we're currently in, well, we are not currently, we're currently in a neutral ENSO in the ocean that we collide some conditions that either make it wetter or drier for us in the winter, below the climate flux in March. We're anticipated to go to a La Nina. That, again, means that the lower third of this country has warmer than normal, drier than normal winters. Upper third has wetter than normal.
Last La Nina we had was in 1718. It was a stronger La Nina, but the difference between half a degree Celsius below the normal sea surface temperatures and predicted value for creating a dry winter. The one we had in 1718 was close to below normal sea surface. We had about 25% that we normally see. I don't want that, but that's what La Nina brings to the world. End of the Wildland seasonal update. Questions? I'll move on to the GIS. All right, so Emily, again, is being awesome, and some of the ways she's being awesome is that she is working with Mike Pace, one of the engineers, and has taken all of the basement information from two different sources, both times if I remember correctly, is that right? And added all that to the maps in Active 911. Talked about that last one that she's worked on that. That project is completed. Little maps that they have, there's a little pink icon, but since it was October we added this, she asked for color, pink. That would be color. The icon is pink, and so that we know that those houses have a basement. And there's a lot more basements than I thought there was in our fires. Again, the reason that's important, the fires in the basement, we go to the front door and don't know that, we fall through the floor into the fire, or we just don't put it out, or we fill the basement and it could be somebody down. There's lots of reasons it's important to know the basement. Some of the stuff that Emily's working on, she's worked on some movie analysis stuff to support John. Map books, that effort is coming together, finalizing, and now what she's focused on is learning the new field app that we do our inspections and the mapping stuff. Bring that to the crews. Basically, she learns that stuff at a high degree. She provides us the information we need to operate at her level, and then she stands by and answers questions when we start. Last thing I wanted to update y'all on is the telecom. And a lot of things going on in telecom. Some of the kind of highlights, if you will, is Jeremy updated all of our iPads and hopefully all of your iPads too, and the iPhones for the district to the iOS 15. It's kind of funny, right? So updated the operating system, not a big deal. Except that when he doesn't update the operating system, or knuckleheads like me forget to press the out to happen, then all of the pushes he gets, like the Mass 360 and everything that we get to all of our privileged information in a secure manner, doesn't work unless the version of the Mass 360 and the version of the operating system match. So, I was talking to Jeremy about that. It's a lot more work than it sounds like just to, just update now on your phone like we all do on our personal. This is working on some radio stuff. He also had did some corrections for the Upper Canyon Fire Department. They're alerting for their new station. For that, and then working on the programming the Knox boxes, identifiers for everybody. Each individual that has access to a Knox box has a unique code that is known only to them. So the Knox box is never used for a nefarious purpose. Exactly, we use it. That right there is there's a whole list of other stuff that they've been working on, but that was the sexy highlights. I'd be happy to
Think we have any for you, Chief? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we'll go to Community Risk Reduction, Division Chief John Davis. Good evening, Board, Mr. Chair. Last month in CRR, we had approximately 4 occupancy inspections due to 66 fire and life safety system, there's kitchen hood system, 42 plans reviews, and 1 FireWise home assessment. Notable events for, as far as fires go, it was a relatively quiet month, which was okay. There was only 1 fire in a structure. It turned out to be a fire with no damage. The inspection program, Captain Wassel and I should say Captain Wassel and Carla have been working hard together to
kind of bring that up and then integrate it more with our ESO, which is our records management system. As you know, when they were out in the field doing that, they had to come back, enter all the stuff, and then it went through GIS and then came to us, and it was kind of a circuitous route to get the whole process done. With the ESO, they're going to be able to do this right in the field. It'll completely bypass Emily and GIS and come straight to us for the record keeping follow-ups. So it'll be a much more streamlined process. We've also changed how those are being so overall, it's well, and the fact that the engine company is back up and running doing the topic of discussion tomorrow at our happening there. My notable, fire marshal safety message. I was looking back. I keep notes of what I've talked about, and I was looking back yesterday trying to figure out a good topic, and I realized I hadn't touched on smoke alarms for quite some time. And as you know, smoke alarms are critical for fire safety in your home. The risk of dying in a home with a smoke detector is lower than in a home. Another thing that you should be doing monthly with your smoke detector is press that little button, make sure it works. Every home should have a smoke detector in every sleeping area, have one in every bedroom, and one in the hallway outside of the bedrooms. You also need one on each level of your home. Most homes have at least one, but really for, a 3 or 4 bedroom, probably 5, 6, or smoke detectors size of the house. Probably 20 years ago, the codes changed, and so all new construction, all smoke detectors have to go off in your bedroom. The rest of them in the house go off. But up until recently, those were only available in hardwired smoke detectors. In the last few years, they've come out with, I guess for lack of a better word, Bluetooth smoke detectors that talk to each other. I've got them in. So the one in the far end of the house goes off. The rest of them go off. They talk wirelessly. They're also a combination unit. One big thing that people seem to be largely unaware of is that, those sensors and those float away and replace it with a very easy to check on the back of your smoke detector. Pull off the wall and look at it. There will be a data. Let down, take a look at it. If it's full, throw it away and get a new one. That's the end of my safety message, but you will indulge me for a few minutes. I wanted to give you a quick primer on the Wildland Urban Interface Code update. I had a couple conversations with Bill Whittington. That is going to be posted. It has to be posted for 20 days prior to when you adopt it. So that is going to be happening. Anyway, as you know, we've been working on this for quite some time. In 2007, Sedona Fire District adopted the 2003 version of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. The packet that I just gave you, the front and back of the first page have a commentary that I've developed. It talks a little bit about the process that was undertaken in 2007, some issues that we found during that process, or during issues we found with that adoption. There's also some inherent issues with the Wildland Urban Interface Code. I use that code every day, and I had trouble navigating through it because in order to determine there's 4 different levels that houses need to be built to, starting at the top with the ignition resistant 1, non-combustible. construction, street construction. It was quite a circuitous route how you got there. You had to look at how many fire weather days were average in our district, and then from those number of days, you went to this certain chart, and then you had to look at the topography of fuel load and water supply in the area, and so you had to follow this whole route and then get down to what level you were supposed to be at. We had, during this process of investigating the 2018 code, we did quite a large random sampling of lots around the district. Probably about 85% of the lots would fall into the ignition-resistant one, with 5 to 7% falling into the IR1 non-combustible, and another 5 to 7% falling into the IR2 level. So with this adoption, we're looking to streamline that whole thing and just say, if you're in the wildland urban interface, you will build to IR1. That's what most of the lots would fall into. It takes out a lot of the wrangling because, like I said, one of the factors you had to look at was vegetation and slope. And of course, we look at that and say, well, that's heavy fuel. And the developer says, no, that's not heavy fuel. That's moderate fuel. And no, your slope's wrong. It's not 30 degrees. It's 28. I mean, if you look down this hill, right, so there's just a lot of interpretation left in. All of that interpretation saying, if you're in the wildland urban interface, it's going to be IR1. That's it. The other thing that we did was we're looking at increasing the wildland urban interface zone. So if you look at the back 2 pages, there are 2 maps on the back, courtesy of Emily, I might add. She has been a tremendous help with this whole process. This map is what we are proposing the wildland urban interface to be. All of the brown areas will be wildland urban interface. So if you look at the second page basically focuses on the city limits of Sedona down into the village of Oak Creek. All of these other brown areas out here are not changing. Those were already wildland urban interface. Those are staying the same. But if you look at the second page, you can see that the brown area or the yellow areas on this page were what was existing in wildland urban interface. Green areas are additions. There is one little red stripe up here around Posse Ground Park that we are deleting. So essentially, what the wildland urban interface area was comprised of in our district was essentially one lot buffer around the areas that bordered Forest Service or managed forest. We are proposing to take that to any property where any lot where any portion of that lot is within of that existing outer boundary, essentially 1/8 of a mile. So, as I said, the yellow areas on this map were existing. The areas are. So that is essentially what our wildland urban interface. Houses that are built within that zone built to the IR1. So again, coming back to this packet that I had given you, probably the most interesting and useful portions of this to board members would be the front and back of the first page. That's my explanation. My commentary on the process and what it is we're hoping to accomplish. And then if you look at page 2 where it says proposed for adoption, down at the bottom where it talks about amending section 302.1, that is the declaration. We have to use a finding of fact to base our adoption of the code on. So that whole section on 302 are the facts that we're using
specify the wildland urban interface. Talks about our weather, our topography, fuel, historic fire behavior, those sorts of things. The rest of this are simply amendments, additions, and deletions to the Wildland Urban Interface Code, which you're more than welcome to read. You probably get more enjoyment out of this watching paint dry. But I encourage you all to look that over the next month or so. If you have any questions, there'll be a discussion before you're asked to adopt this. And with that, I'm happy to answer any.
Simple one, making this change, does the cost of construction go up very much by doing this? Is this a big thing?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that. One of the construction companies that I've been working with, Lawler Construction, they're an early adopter to this. And we had some discussions over the past several months. And, initially that was their concerns on how much is this going to cost us, how much is it going to product go up in the end. And, they built some nice houses, not inexpensive. And talking to their guy that does the bidding, he told me, he said, basically we figured out that we can be building these houses for a couple $1,000s. We can be building to the IR1 standard for a couple $1,000s on $500,000. And so, the one that owns the company, his input was, why aren't we building all of our homes higher wildfire standard? So they have taken a hard look at it, and based on my conversation, they may smaller homes. Arizona, if you look around our fire district, commentary is a very easy argument to make to say that, look, our entire fire district is wildland urban interface. But in Arizona, given the weather, the fuel conditions, the topography in our area, your home to a certain.
Thank you. Joe, other questions for James? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Davis, and I do want to do a couple follow-up comments before I go to Chief posting and then the option of the 28th. So just compliments to Chief Davis vision because they've done a lot of work on this over time. One thing I want to note to the board, the complexity of us approving that Wildland Urban Interface Code and adopting an updated code, it's incredibly complex for us because part of our fire district goes up into Coconino County, part of it's in Yavapai County, based in the National Forest, state responsibility areas. Well, why did I say it's complex? Because all of those have a different definition. Our goal was to manage the Sedona Fire District so safety of the community by improving that wildland urban interface code. So we expect as we move downstream, hopefully those counties and the cities all kind of align to our definition. We talked a lot about the 8th mile. So as we move downstream and adopt newer codes even, and that some argument, there's wildland urban interface. What's the difference between 600 and 6,000 feet? Not much when you look at some of our environments. So it's an improvement. When you look at the history of the fire service country, we in the most aggressive way, I'm going to use the term aggressive way, that safety of a community, fire code and fire code requirements. Fire. The community risk reduction, which is all inclusive, different threats we have, again, the idea is, create codes and compliance and environments that slow a fire so we can get their or even eliminate a fire. Keep it in check like a fire sprinkler system. Well, we've not only saved lives, we've saved property. In a lot of cases, we eliminate. For our operations side, which is a heavy part of every fire agency, very reactionary. A 911 call and we go respond and mitigate it. Risk reduction thinks, well, 20 years from now when this community is built out, what's that wildland urban interface going to look like? Do we build houses and harden them against that threat? And we're going to get results. So it's a slow over time, but this is really important for this fire district and this fire board. Much like this, part of that big picture on the wildland threat. And now we're going to respond, we're going to trade, we're going to have the proper apparatus and equipment personnel, but we're also going to improve the community reduction of fire code requirements. So, the trend is a safer. I want to make camp from So, we will turn it over to Division Chief Ed Mizulis, EMS Training Fleet.
All right, here we are. EMS activities and updates. We've been working a ton with NAH, kind of streamlining our processes. They recently had a DEA inspection on their pharmacy, and so we've been working to do some quality assurance with our reporting to make sure our narcotics usage aligns with the pharmacy and sure our processes keep the same. We've also been having some conversations with the hospital because they're seeing numbers like they've never seen before, and it increases interfacilities not only for us but for Verde Valley Ambulance. So it changes some of the dynamics of how we were doing business. So been having good dialogue with them and figuring out some things. Pretty interesting. Don't know if this is a new normal for a while or if this is just an uptick. I'm happy to report we've been having good dialogue with our medical director and the nursing directors and really navigate through it. State activities, there's a AC in front of you tonight. That's part of what we're doing to keep going with our capital purchasing and keep our fleet in order. Mike continues to do a really great job of keeping things in. Got all the parts and pieces for the refurb ambulance we did a few months back, and it should be going into service in the next couple of weeks. Can schedule it. All other is running as expected. Our new battalion rig went down for some maintenance. They had to call in the specialist from the company that makes the blinky lights because the frequency at which they were blinking was interfering with the frequencies we use on the radio, and the company that did the install was very perplexed and called the rep and reprogrammed the blinks, and they're working on fixing it, so we'll get that back up soon. But it was on a fire through something at somebody that they had never seen before. It was interesting. But Mike's just been doing a fantastic job. And training Mike Duran, so not only did he get our 4 new hires onboarded and out in the fleet, he completed the 12-month exams for the 4 firefighters we hired last year. So they're all minted and done with probation. So that's pretty exciting, benchmark to use the chief's word, to get off probation and just start getting going. And the neatest part about it is most people are pretty reserved their first year and head down and working hard, and then you see this bit of light enter the change in their skin color and everything, because they feel a little bit of relief and they open up a little more, so it's fun. So that's a lift. There's a physical and a written test that they have to do at the end of the 12 months, so getting around and getting that administered with the battalions and the crews was good. We did our fire credit training hours and EMS credit training hours on our online stuff. We had some folks attend State Fire School, did some mental health classes and some operational classes. Chief attended a class, new chief seminar. We did more Arbinger training. We've done TRT drills. Some of our folks on limited duty assisted PD with a pretty extensive real-time stop the bleed thing, so that was kind of neat. And we've just been working with Mike to really dial in some of the stuff we're doing for the fall. Typically, this is the time of year when our medical certs start to expire, so we're getting everybody in their refresher training lined up. And with our new physician, we do what's called rapid sequence intubation, where we paralyze and knock somebody out if they need a tube to breathe. And it's a specialty skill that not a lot of districts do, so we have some annual training, and with our new medical director, he wants to realign how we do that. So I'm working on that. And then lastly, we've been with Chief Troutwine's support, and frankly that a lot of new chiefs in the Verde Valley, there's an uptick in regionalization and doing things more alike. And so I've been meeting with the regional training chiefs, look at some drills we can do throughout the fall and spring that'll align some of our processes and evaluate some of our mutual and auto aid agreements. Because, like for example, right now, if we're running short on ambulances, we physically get on the radio and say, hey, can you send us an ambulance from so-and-so? And that's an archaic way to do it. We'd like to align some of those things so those are more automatic. Because in the past, there was pockets of kingdoms around the Verde Valley that wanted to keep together, but we're realizing that working more fluidly, the resources are getting where they need to be quicker. So that's a lot of the stuff we've really been working on. And questions, please.
Questions for Chief Mazulis? Chief, thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Chief?
Thank you. So we'll finish off the chief's report here, a strategic plan. As we've shared, it has been updated, and we've carried Jarver on our way out, made sure it was loaded in our template. And vendor is going to be coming out with staff here soon and pressure training as we track all those goals and all tasks that implement. Station 4 is still on a role. Some of the strategic talking we've had about that with finances in terms of looking at a capital plan. We've got a couple more years and then stations drop off the books. The we looked today was a 10-year. So we're going to hit 10 years on that station, and then with the COVID issues in terms of material supplies and construction, that might we'll watch that, see if that's a good time as the station drops off. More to come on that. And a grant, we had a AFG grant in for self-contained breathing apparatus, so that fresh air that our firefighters take in a hazardous environment. We tried for the same grant last year and did not get it, so we tried again this year and did not get it. So we'll probably try again next year, but it doesn't negate us from doing some solid capital planning, because that equipment, it's very expensive equipment. It's about 10-year technology, so we're right there at the 10-year. What's due to be updated, and staff's going to move forward with that update, making sure we have the capital dollars to do that. We'll go for that AFG grant again, and it will offset that expenditure. So we're hopeful. We got some good input from the grantor, and help modify how we write it and improve it. Purchase orders, you can see we opened a couple there between 10 and 50,000. Was our annual payroll, timekeeping service. Out here. Thankful for those. Public outreach and communications. And then all those ATVs rolling over like crazy. A little bit of a decrease, and there's something incredibly exciting going on. But we still have a significant reach format to share information with the reviewed the thank you letters if you have not yet. Great correspondence again, validating a lot of our work out there in the field with our firefighters are accomplishing. And you'll see here a couple of our very gracious donors here in the district. That includes all the information on the fire chief report.
One comment, Chief. You mentioned because of availability of materials due to COVID and supply and all that, we maybe just push it off a little bit. By the same time, and that's in reference primarily to Fire Station 4. Fire Station 5 of equal need also has like a clock on it in that the owner, released it to us, is patiently waiting. Is that going to cause us to look at two stations being built at the same time, potentially?
Well, yes, possibly. When we assess the need for 4 and 5, as staff, we evaluate that we think 4 is definitely the priority. So once that project gets up and running, parallel, the challenge up in the Oak Creek Canyon, in the property, Pine Rock, or we'll allow that process to happen while we're building 4. So there may be some crossover. Definitely there'll be a crossover with the build them together. Priority will be 4 than 5. So there will be some distance between them, maybe not much. We want to do those as separate projects in terms of how they'll impact the capital budget, also having that request. Or coming to the board, and if we build projects at once and maybe no, that's too much. We want to pace it a little bit. Our capital planning and fiduciary.
Thank you. Okay, that's your reports. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Next item on the agenda is a presentation update on the selection of the information technology assessment vendor, and that is by the executive team. So I don't know who wants to head that up. Chief?
I believe Heidi Robinson wants to head that up.
Oh, do I? Well, I would be happy to. We put some information in the packet to let you know the process that we went through. So the fire chief convened a committee consisting of Chief Coyle, myself, and the telecom manager, Bob Moat, so we could work together to issue the RFP, so the request for to respond with the services that were required, scope of work and the planning and how we wanted to go through that. We set our deadline, put that out July 1. By the end of the month, we had received 2 valid responses. We put that into that packet as well, the 2 companies that received. The committee convened so that we could review their proposal, so that we could make sure we're comparing the services apples to apples with cost. Cost was not the only thing we were evaluating. We were looking at full responsiveness, their fit to the district, their previous history in working on projects like this. We have a unique topographical situation going on with our radios and service and dead zones, and somebody familiar with this kind of a landscape was really important to us. Both of our vendors seemed very qualified, and ultimately we did elect to choose Pegasus Telecommunications. They've worked on several projects with a couple of our sister organizations. Recently finished one in Mesa, which was a very large project. So we have initiated contract negotiations with the vendor. So we're doing those now. We've had one initial planning meeting where Bob and their lead talked some really in-depth tech that I just listened, and so they have a really good grasp on the project and have some ideas and some suggestions. So we're going back and forth right now with our agreement and setting up our next planning meeting and see if we all agree and moving forward with the project. Right now they are well within the scope of the project budget that we asked for with our surplus spending, so that is how it is being funded. Their proposal is within those guidelines. Have some ideas, the things that they'd like to suggest to us modifications that they'd like to make along the way, and we were really pleased with how responsive they were to that idea, that we might not know what we're asking for until they get out there, and they seem to really understand that concept, that we have a general idea of what they could do for us, and they may find other items in that. So that's the status update on that project, and again, thank you for approving that as one of our, it was the top item actually on our budget worksheet for that surplus funding, and it's a project we've been wanting to do for some time. We're glad we asked for this funding because we did find, in fact, that it was as expensive as we feared it would be to do the assessment. And then working on those details of what we need afterwards, we're going to be in a much better position as a district, as a partner in the area when we assess and really start working on
Their assessment of the total communication system, does it include evaluation of technology that we're, because things have evolved over time, whether or not more modern or more appropriate technology that we could have been using or we could use to improve the overall system?
So we've asked them to assess what we have currently and evaluate those gaps, our pros and our cons, what we're able to work with and what we can do moving forward. And then we're asking that in their assessment that they do make those kinds of suggestions that talk about not only equipment and location, infrastructure, staffing, how we cooperate with other agencies, that kind of a full range of requests that we've made for them to evaluate, including not only current modern technology, but future thinking technology, so that we're upgradable and that we're able to keep this. This is a 50-year project in the making, and it should have a 50-year life going forward. And Chief Crow grabbed his mic, so he's going to talk in a more technical language.
Into the relevant external standards for the different radio systems and everything. I'll answer your question that is what's going to make it align with the radio communication. Whatever that system is.
Thank you.
Well, it's without a doubt that when we approved that fiscal 20 surplus funding, that was the first step to allocate money towards that. This is but a next step in many steps to get towards our end goal. So I'm glad to see we're heading in that direction. This is big for us to have selected a vendor.
Yes.
And so I look forward to the updates and what they have to say as we move along. So anybody else have any comment on that? Okay, well, there is no action suggested, so therefore we can move on to the next item.
We can. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just a thank you to the board for supporting this, because like you said, Mr. Chair, infrastructure's been out there for a number of decades, but no one's really carefully assessed it. So the opportunity to lay a foundation of metrics and data, gave a plan, capital planning, 10, 15, 20 years out, we know we're improving that infrastructure. Like any technology, it gets outdated quickly. So if you don't keep on it, then you have failures. So that's what this is about, and I hope, we will prove that, support that, and this is really visionary. Not been accomplished in the Sedona Fire District. So that's the attempt, and I think we're going to get an outcome.
Good. Look forward to it. Next on the agenda is the approval to purchase replacement command staff and technical rescue apparatus, presented by Division Chief Azulis.
Good evening once again. So the two vehicles before you in the board action form are in our capital improvement and capital replacement program. Multiple reasons for these two vehicles. One the command staff vehicle replacement that'll push a newer vehicle into our Wildland and utility fleet. The truck that it'll ultimately be replacing is over 20 years old. The other vehicle is our rope and swiftwater rescue vehicle, and currently we have a vehicle that is 20 years old, the chassis for that technical rescue vehicle, and the box or the compartments on the back has been repurposed. I think it's the third chassis, so it's, wearing out, and it's been used for so many different purposes over the years. It's kind of strayed from our mission of technical rescue to the point where if we have a swiftwater rescue deployment, for example, we have to trailer the boat and associated equipment along with that vehicle, which adds complexity because if the crew's out doing rescues, we have to figure out how to get the trailer with the boat. So that particular vehicle, the proposal is to build a purpose-built technical rescue and swiftwater vehicle that'll accommodate all our rope rescue gear, our boat, and all the associated swiftwater gear, so personnel on it can get out there and get a rescue going. The reason isn't just to replace a chassis because it's 20 years old. I mean, there's a multitude of reasons. One of the vehicles we're replacing has got almost 300,000 miles on it, and the other one has lower miles, but both vehicles no longer meet current emission standards. There's a lot of safety equipment that's been improved in the past 20 years, and there's some outliers like the feds in the state, potential for contracts where they're not going to contract out vehicles more than 20 years old. So multitude of reasons to replace them. We also reviewed maintenance records, and one of the vehicles has exceeded its tired. It's been around the country a lot, and we've babied it, band-aided it, and it's just the cost for repair exceeds its value. So that's the reason behind these two replacements. Is it's in the capital plan, and I just explained the vehicles. Down to the request for funding, I've never come to the board and asked for a not-to-exceed price on a vehicle because you go and typically find a price and put it all together. At the past couple of weeks working with Enterprise to locate vehicles that meet these specs, evaluate a lease purchase option to bring to the board, and I also have been working with the Ford dealership that gives us the best pricing to do a build, if you will, where we outright. This BAC doesn't state that we're making a decision to lease purchase or to purchase outright. It's just to provide for the funding, and the reason for that is with the not to exceed is the technical rescue truck, for example. Both of them require upfit. They require camper shells or other equipment, light packages, and things like that. And the not to exceed reflects fluctuating prices and chassis in vehicles in general, not just for us, but for the entire country. And, I put about a 10% buffer in there because of the different prices I'm getting quoted from the manufacturers and these companies. In addition to that, some of the things we have to do with the upfitting, the length of time we have to wait for the parts, and the potential for the light packages right now, like for the battalion rig we just built, it took 12 weeks to get the equipment, and I wanted to create an environment financially where we prepared for any price changes if, in fact, we have to upfit these vehicles in 12 months when they get here. Right now, Ford has explained to me that if we order a vehicle and purchase it traditionally, they anticipate at the earliest we could take receipt. We're anticipating 12. So I didn't want to bring to you something that would, and down the road, have to come back and say, oh, that $20,000 thing, it's actually 40. I did my homework. I spoke with Gabe, and I talked to all the manufacturers, and I am very confident that these not-to-exceed prices will cover the costs that we require to build these vehicles. We'll have the products that we need to perform.
So it's more than likely that they may come in under these prices, these not-to-exceeds?
I have a high level of confidence that the tech rescue vehicle, for example, will come in well under what I anticipated. The other vehicle will be really close to.
And a purchase versus a lease, does that lock you in at a price at the time that a deal is signed versus, and with 6-month delivery or up to 12-month delivery, would that price?
So if we lock in a purchase, traditional purchase, price is the price. Issue I had with the lease purchase through Enterprises, essentially, they're just a shopping mechanism for us because they have the nationwide network of dealerships, and I don't have the capacity to call Omaha Ford and say, hey, you got any F-250s with this? I just don't know enough about all that. And the issue is it took Enterprise 2 weeks to locate a truck that they could get an estimated price on, so I'm concerned that I'm not concerned about whether we lease purchase or purchase. That's, we'll talk to Gabe as we've done before and find the best actions for us. But ultimately, purchasing, for example, the technical rescue truck, that's a 20-year. It doesn't get a lot of miles, but it's well maintained, and it's a good 20-year vehicle. So my suggestion would be purchase, whereas a command vehicle and wildland vehicle replacement, where it's utilized a lot, that may be a 5 to 7 year vehicle, and the lease purchase like we did with the Henry makes sense. But ultimately, if approved, my next steps would be to go out to Enterprise and say, hey, what's where? Because there isn't any inventory. If they can find something, then we can make a decision, and we have a couple weeks to do that. The other variable, I could explain all night the hassle, but the other variable is Ford. If we purchase a truck, 2022, Ford Motor Company cuts off purchasing of their 2022 model year this November 12th. So it's not a gamble, but I'd almost rather, with this tech rescue truck, for example, that we're going to have in the fleet for decades, almost rather have it locked in and purchased and know it's coming. Whereas Enterprise is going to spool for to find us something that fits that's our spec is. So ultimately, either route, the not to exceed price will cover the cost of the vehicle and the upfit, and I won't be coming back to surprise you with it.
And these are also accountable in the overall budget for
Yes.
for
In fact,
current fiscal year.
we budgeted quite a bit more for the technical rescue truck because we're going to use additional fire truck manufacturer, but those quotes all came back in hundreds, and we had a committee, an apparatus committee of our technical rescue folks that spent a ton of time researching some other ways to build a functional technical rescue truck, and they dropped about $100,000 off that price.
Chief Trotwine, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Chief Missoula outlined it very well.
Mm-hmm. But thank you for all the work you did on that. I'd like to open it up to the board and get what their thoughts are on the ability to approve or disapprove this amount of funding for this purchase or acquisition.
It's budgeted,
It's already in the budget. Yeah.
so this
Basically a no
procedure.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a procedure. So, you're good with that? Okay. Then, Jan, would you like to read the motion?
I move to approve the purchase of 2 Ford F-250s. The command staff vehicle is not to exceed $85,000, and the technical rescue vehicle is not to exceed $140,000.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Second. Any further discussion? Those are the figures that you were looking at. Okay. All right. With that said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We'll get those rigs.
Thank you. Time to get to work.
You got it. Okay. Brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is basically the board members' items or news or doings over the past year. Past month. We don't have that much time. I caught myself on that one. So, Al, would you like to start us
Yeah,
out?
well, it's funny. Social media is always part of my observation about how to push the mission of the Sedona Fire District. But I had a personal thing. Middle of the night, excuse me, that smoke detector started making noise, and for a day and a half, almost 2 days, because it's 14 feet up in the air. I mean, who has a ladder that big? And somebody said, call the fire department. Oh, yeah. I called the fire department, and 15 minutes later, I had a fire truck and crew, and it had nothing to do with me being on the fire board. I mean, they replaced 4 or 5 smoke detector batteries, and it was amazing how quickly it worked, just by calling the fire district.
There you go.
And they stopped making that noise. You don't realize, in the middle of the night, you can't sleep with that thing going on.
We know.
That was a good story. Good. All right. Helen, anything for us?
For me, it was basically doing the arbiter training, getting a chance to meet the new hires, and do that. And thanks to Chief, I was able to go up to Station 4 and Station 5 and meet some of the crews there. And I look forward to getting to meet the crews at the other stations as well as there's time available.
Perfect, perfect. I think we're getting to a point where maybe we can get a ride back down to the communication center in Cottonwood as a group to view that.
I would enjoy that.
Janet, anything for encountered?
No, just have my one-on-ones with the chief, and I enjoy those. They're very informative, and try to do as much research as I can.
Okay, perfect. Well, I too did basically just that. I had my one-on-one with the chief, a great about 2-hour discussion, which was only supposed to be about, 45 minutes? Well, we covered a lot of ground. Yeah, I know. But we covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time and always being available for us. So with that said, and again, thank you for the staff for putting everything you did together, especially with our new clerical over here with Michelle. And with that said, this meeting is adjourned.